Awesome. Welcome everyone to our February Hawaii statewide call for Citizens Climate Lobby. I'm so happy for everyone to be able to join. We do start at the top of the hour, so we'll just go ahead and kick it off. For our agenda tonight, we'll do a little welcome and connection before content is something we like to do. Before we get into the serious conversation, maybe just a little connection between us all. We'll talk about our values, mission, and policy agenda. Especially if you've never joined a CCL meeting, this will be a great introduction. And then we'll go through some national updates and actions. This includes a video from the leader of CCL, Rachel, that we'll walk through. And then we'll follow that with some Hawaii updates. So what are we doing on more of a local level for our policy? What kind of media is supporting that? What events might be coming up that you could join or help out in? So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. For our connection before content tonight, our question is, what concerns you about our current situation and what can we collectively and as individuals do to address them? So if you wanted to put it in the chat or come off mute for a minute, that's also welcome. I think what concerns us about our current situation, personally, I feel like we had made so much progress towards some of our renewable energy goals, and it feels like sometimes, the incentives are stagnating. So, I'm not sure what I can personally do about that, but being part of CCL makes me feel like I'm part of community and acting towards those goals. Does anybody else want to share? And I also work in the electric vehicle space now. So for my career, I'm like, oh, I want electric vehicles to get adopted at a faster rate. But that's kind of a personal matter.
I'll go. And, more power to you. Really appreciate that you've moved into that space for obvious reasons. So what concerns me about our current situation is, obviously there's a lot of chaos, right? A lot of it is intentional. There's just a lot of decisions that are being made, being communicated, being hinted at that it's giving me or has given me this perception that, there's just a lot of chaos. And what that does for me, and I think for a lot of people, is it prevents us from seeing what is happening that truly matters, that we truly should be concerned about. And what I'm doing about this is to not react necessarily, but to take a look at information being shared through certain sources, having conversations with others who care and who are knowledgeable, and then also being mindful of the things that I have control over. Right, a lot of the local stuff that we're doing today is an example of that. Anyway, that's me.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing, Noel. Helen says, almost everything. We need to stand up together and testify on good legislation. I love that. CCL definitely gives us some bills that we recommend that you would testify on. And Keith stays informed and shares with family and friends. Love that. And then Paul says, inactivity of Congress is what you're concerned about. And for action, what Helen's saying, stand up together to support good legislation. I also read recently this book, Democracy in Retrograde, which is all about how you can find how you can engage in a meaningful way. And that's not kind of going past the boundaries of what you're able and capable to support. Highly recommend that as a next step. See, Doug says, continue to have climate conversations with local and state legislators using carbon cashback as a vehicle. That's awesome. I love Doug's commitment to carbon cashback, which is carbon fee and dividend for anyone who doesn't know. And then Ron always emailing our members of Congress, MOCs, on a regular basis. That's awesome as well. It's very easy to email our members of Congress, so we do encourage everyone to do that.
I did it today.
Anybody else want to share? You did it today, Keith? Awesome. Congrats.
Yeah, there was a little CCL invite to write your members of Congress about NOAA, National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's in our agenda later on for an action.
Bremer.
I'll just say action's the antidote to despair, right? So being in action is empowering, and it gives us the opportunity for us to share what we believe in and what we think we want to see, or what we actively work towards seeing. And being in that action is a very powerful space to be in.
Who's talking? It sounds like Seth Meyers.
Wow.
You're the celebrity.
I haven't heard that one before. Hi, Bobby. My name is Bill Barron, and I'm the network director. So I'm taking sort of on the Pacific Northwest regional director spot, in addition to some other parts of the country. And so I just joined in to say hello and introduce myself.
Right.
all the way from Salt Lake City, Utah. So, yeah, thanks for being with us despite the late hour there.
My pleasure.
So, well, we can always share more later in the call, but we do have kind of a packed agenda, so we'll get going to the next slide, and hopefully we can find some ways for you all to take action. So I'll pass it over to Keith for our core values.
Thank you. Our CCL core values are about focus, optimism, diversity, relationship, integrity, being nonpartisan, and how we engage ourselves and our work is through, it guides our personal power. Next slide. And our mission, of course, is to create political will for a livable world by empowering individuals to exercise breakthroughs in their exercise of their personal and political power.
Good, Keith. And let me just add, CCL is fabulous in the training department to help you become a more active participant. So our policy agenda, in the top left corner there is our favorite, carbon cashback, which is the local Hawaii term for carbon fee and dividend, known nationally, as I think Ashley said, as carbon fee and dividend. That's the policy which spurred the foundation of Citizens Climate Lobby back in, I think the year was 2007. And right now, the national situation for a carbon fee and dividend bill looks bleak. And right now in Hawaii, the situation for carbon cashback is also dead for this legislative session. So we're not going to go away or sit and wait for things to change for the better. We've got other policy agendas, and they're on the top right: electrifying America's buildings and households is something that we can pursue actively as the opportunities arise to reduce emissions, even without carbon fee and dividend or carbon cashback. On the lower left, we need healthy forests. We don't need to be cutting down forests. We need to be restoring and, as it's called, afforestation. And that's a huge issue for Hawaii and for the mainland. And then finally, on the lower right, clean energy permitting reform. If it takes 10 or 15 years to get a permit to build a nice new clean energy generation facility, gosh, if it takes 10 or 15 years, that's a real disincentive for investors. And in addition to that, if you can't get your power from where you're generating it via a long-distance interstate transmission line to where it's needed, that's another problem that permitting reform can address. So those are a total of CCL's policy agenda. The next slide would be national updates and actions. Okay, so in line with our connection before content, which says, what can we do given the current situation? I think we thought it would be very appropriate to listen to our National Executive Director, Rachel Carestas, who on the monthly national call just recently, the first since the inauguration, we now have a month's worth of information about what the current administration is going to try to do, or undo, maybe more appropriate. Rachel Carestas will guide us through her point of view, and feel free to take notes because she's dynamite.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the February meeting of Citizens Climate Lobby. I'm Flannery Winchester, CCL's Vice President of Communications, and I'm your host this month for the call. Please feel free to introduce yourself in the Q&A so that we can all see that and welcome each other. And let us know where you're joining from, how many folks are there with you if you're watching with your chapter. And also, we'll drop a link in the chat where you can log your attendance on the call today so that we officially know you were here with us. So thank you all for being here, and let's get started. So on the call today, we're going to review some recent highlights and updates that have happened since our last meeting, and then we will hear from our guest speaker, Danielle Watson from American Forests, and we'll also take some time to go through our February actions, and we will take an action together on the call today. But before we get into that agenda, I'm going to hand things over to CCL's Executive Director, Rachel Carestas, for some perspective on the state of things. Because our January meeting was on January 11th, so that was before the inauguration. And so it's been almost 3 weeks since the inauguration, and those have been very busy and at times alarming 3 weeks. And I know that many of you are eager to understand how CCL is thinking about everything that's going on. So to start us off today, I'm going to hand things right off to Rachel for her perspective. Hi, Rachel.
Hey, Flannery, thank you. And hi, everyone. It's good to see you all. I hope everybody's doing well. I know it's been a really to say it's been busy feels like a massive understatement. I want to really say that, but I know it has been a really busy time. And so I hope you all are taking care of yourselves and doing, the sorts of things that you need to do to take care of your mental health and not spending too much time on social media and doom scrolling and all of that sort of stuff. So as Flannery said, when we met last, it was before the inauguration. And so we talked a lot then about what we were expecting, what we were anticipating, what our plans would be once the Trump administration came in and once the new Congress got settled and everybody got started working. I want to acknowledge kind of two things up front about all of that. First of all, we did talk a lot about the strategy we had seen from the Trump administration the first time around, which was this flood the zone strategy, right? This is a very intentional strategy of theirs to just put as many things out there as possible as once, because it kind of creates chaos. And we talked about how discipline and focus were the antidotes of that chaos. And we talked a lot about trying to prepare ourselves for that flood the zone strategy. And even though I think mentally or intellectually we can say, oh yeah, we were ready for this, it's another thing to say you're ready and then another thing to like actually experience it once it's happening. So we just want to be cognizant of that. Like, yes, we were expecting this onslaught of stuff, but there's still an impact to feeling that onslaught of stuff. And things, I think too, we talked a lot about Project 2025 and the things that the administration said that they were going to do if they were to win the election. So to to a certain extent, we're not surprised in the sense that like they told us everything they were going to do. We knew the what, we knew a bit of the why. What we didn't know was the how. And I think that's the place that maybe still is taking folks by surprise, because I think we weren't all collectively expecting the how they were going to go around or go about doing these sorts of things. So, we saw the effort of the administration to freeze all federal grants and loans, right? Which is not something that the president has the power to do. We saw the attempt at placing tariffs on Canada and Mexico. We saw, of course, the tariffs on China, which actually have gone into effect. We saw the threat of tariffs against Colombia. We knew that some of those things were coming because he talked about tariffs a lot, but we didn't know who and when and where and the extent of those threats and whether any of them would actually, come into being. And then, of course, we also saw that there was a number of targets on their list of certain federal agencies that the administration wanted to eliminate, including NOAA. And we're going to talk a little bit more about NOAA today, because that one in particular is important to us, although there's important climate-related things in USAID, which is another one of those agencies that is targeted thus far. But NOAA, of course, just as a reminder, that's the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. This is the agency that is authorized, it's funded by Congress. It plays a critical role in weather forecasting. It does the extreme weather warnings. It also obviously is the place where a lot of climate science takes place. The National Weather Service is part of NOAA, and it's the only public weather forecasting agency. And so the National Weather Service, as you guys all know, that protects us all against the threats of extreme weather, hurricanes, winter storms, wildfires, all of the things that we know are happening most frequently. But that also powers our weather apps. And it's where, every television meteorologist gets their data from the National Weather Service again, as well. And their research, of course, is the gold standard for tracking the levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and the oceans. They publish the data for America. They publish it for the international community. And they're, one of the key sources of forecasting all the changes associated with climate change as a result. And so hindering NOAA's ability to carry out its core functions not only goes against congressional authority and intent, but it would have very serious consequences for the fight against climate change. And, the impacts on the National Weather Service would jeopardize the safety of American communities all across the country. So there's a lot. There's a lot going on. And of course, we've talked about the IRA as well. And I mention all of these things not for the purpose of trying to alarm you or overwhelm you. Again, we just want to recognize that many of you are news attentive adults, right? You're following the news very closely. We've heard from a lot of you in different calls that you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling very alarmed. And what we want to do is just take a moment to make sure we're all on the same page and that we've recognized that these are challenging times. The tactical ways that these things are rolling out are uncharted waters for us in terms of figuring out how to counteract that. And we want to be honest and transparent about that. The question that we do keep hearing from all of you is, what do we do? And I know we're all wondering about that. Like, what do we do? What do we do as CCL? What do we do in terms of these things that are happening? How do we make sure our whole system of checks and balances is working? And what sort of power do we all have? So we want to talk about this just a little bit. the first and most important thing is that there is some real energy gearing up out there, not just within CCL, but kind of across the board. I think there was maybe a little bit of like resignation after the election, or, I don't know, maybe just some complacency even in some pockets. But I think people are woken up to that now, and they're starting to step up and get active. But so going back to everything that we talked about before, right? Focus, discipline being the antidote to chaos, and what do we do and how do we respond? And in my view, and I think the view of our team, is that our leverage point is still Congress, right? Article 1 of our Constitution still puts Congress in control of the government, and our best leverage point remains Congress. A lot of what we're seeing here is the executive branch trying to extend its authority into areas that constitutionally belong to Congress. And Congress can and should flex its muscle here. And I think leadership in Congress and members of Congress are trying to figure that out. And you're seeing more and more of that happen in a bipartisan way. No one really wants to give up the power that the Constitution has placed in Congress. And so, at the end of the day, members of Congress still want to get elected. They don't want their states to be hurting from tariffs and rising prices. They don't want the programs and businesses in their states that rely on government funding to be cut. They see the importance of scientific research, that they don't want cancer research being stopped. They don't want the National Weather Service to go away. And so when their voters, and by extension those lawmakers themselves, begin to feel the pain of these policies, they can and will have sway on the administration. So all of that means that our work focusing on Congress, talking to Republicans especially, is vital in this moment. We have to keep up that drumbeat. We have to keep reminding folks why this is important, why it's important to their constituents. And we have to do that in that framework of, this is your lane, this is your power, this is what the Constitution has told you guys to do, so go do it. So we're going to keep doing that. And we're going to keep doing that on the issues that we know best and that we're closest to. So those millions of dollars of investments, hundreds of thousands of clean energy jobs that are risked from the IRA funding pause. Tell your senators, tell your representative about that. We've given you an action in the February action sheet to do just that. And then the congressionally authorized and directed climate science, extreme weather forecasting is at risk. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, NOAA's climate and weather data is key to everything that we do. So we've got messages to Congress about that as well. Tell your senator to protect NOAA. Tell your representative to protect NOAA. We'll do this together a little later on in the call. And, it's not just us that's doing that. Lots of our partners and allies are out there doing the same thing, and that's also a really good thing. We want everybody to be out there doing their part, raising their voices, and people are doing this beyond climate too, right? So there are folks calling and emailing and doing all of the things that we do on all of those other issues as well. And, it might not always be as easy and as fast, because everybody's trying to figure out who's doing, what and where, and how much authority the administration is trying to grab from Congress, and what the roles of the courts are going to be. But we know that our most promising path forward is to leverage our grassroots volunteers and to set you all on the path where we know you can be most effective. We can do our part, right? And we're going to do our part, because the more we do, the more we get out and say, Congress has the authority. This is a democracy. Article 1 of the Constitution the more people are reminded of that. And I can't think of anything that's more important to do, not just for climate, but in general at this moment. So we're going to stay on the field. We're going to do this work for as long as it takes, and we're going to do it all for the benefit of our climate and our democracy. And so, let's get out there. Let's do our best. I'm going to turn it back over to Flannery, and we're going to get more into the details.
That was 14.
Thanks, Noel.
Yep.
Yeah.
You want to
I
start
think the
sharing again?
next slide was for Ron, and it was an action based on what Rachel was sharing.
Yeah.
And do you have a slide? I bet you do.
There we go.
And there it is. Okay. NOAA, National Oceanic Administration, gold standard for carbon dioxide. Write Congress and tell them, don't defund, do whatever you can to support NOAA. And as you may or may not know, the famous carbon dioxide graph that Rachel referred to as the gold standard worldwide for carbon dioxide measurements is right up here on Hawaii Island, slopes of Mauna Loa at 11,000 feet. And if you ever get a chance, it's an excellent activity to drive up there. And you can't go in anymore. You used to be able to drive right up, and now it's got chain link fence around it. You've got to get permission and stuff. But that is the action that Rachel's recommending. And what I can tell you is if you click the link, and if somebody can put that link in the chat, if you click the link, what'll happen is it'll say, who are you? So you got to enter your name, and it wants to know your email address, and it wants to know your zip code. And when you tell it those things, particularly the zip code, the program knows who your members of Congress are. Are you in Hawaii District 2, Hawaii District 1? That changes our representative from Joe Takuda to Ed Case. Senators represent the whole state. They don't change depending on where you live. That's Senator Schatz and Senator Hirono. And when you enter that information, a box will pop up, and it has it has a suggested script, which you can change. And it's highly recommended that you personalize it. So when you get good at doing that, it takes all of about 3 or 4 minutes. And frequency is huge because, as we're coming to understand, the staff records the number of messages every week. And so just because you emailed them last week doesn't mean to say you can't email them this week and the following week and the following week. Do it every time is what I would recommend. So that's the action right now, and CCL will change the action depending on how things evolve and what becomes the new urgency in Congress based on all the work that they do over there in Washington, D.C. and on the Hill. So thank you.
And I'll just add also, we have a lot of people express interest in joining CCL, but maybe they're more focused on some of the ocean elements living in Hawaii. That is often something that comes up. You may want to be picking up trash on the beaches or doing some sort of reef cleanup, but supporting NOAA supports those efforts as well. So I think this is an excellent opportunity to send to all of your friends. It's something that all of us in Hawaii should be very interested in supporting. So send it to your friends. Use the super easy CCL tool to contact your members of Congress, just like Ron said. Awesome. So we'll go into Hawaii updates.
Given all the stuff that we talked about previously, I think the essence of this is covered. I'll just summarize that. Among the other things that we can do clearly, and a lot of us on this team are actively involved, given that we're in the midst of the legislative session, is that at this point in time, state level action is critical, right? It's something we have control over, something where we can be actively involved in. And it's really motivating to know that there's the opportunity to make a difference locally, and then also the fact that what progress we make here can also be a beacon for an inspiration for change in similar actions across the nation. I don't know why the middle section is blank, but there was a recent article that Ron got published in the Tribune Herald. I think it was today, right? Today or yesterday? Ron?
It was this morning. Yes.
This morning. Yeah. So it was very timely. What was it about, Ron?
Oh, it was about protecting NOAA.
Yes.
And the Keeling curve. Yeah.
Very timely. Yeah. So
absolutely.
So if there's a link to that article, maybe someone can put that in the chat. But I just want to highlight the fact that one of the actions that many of us are involved in is essentially engaging with the media. And here are just some of the screenshots from some of the publications since our last meeting. Right. So we had LTEs on Maui News. There was Paul. What was this? Don't let funds slip away. Was this from Star Advertiser?
Yeah, that's Paul's good letter. Yeah.
Yep. And then on the social media front, we have Jamin and Virginia actively posting as well on our channels. These are a couple of the IG posts that were done recently. I'll turn it over to Paul now.
Okay. So in terms of actually, I don't know if Kyrie, Sequoia, Bevan, whoever is the 808 number, if any of you are in the category of 14 to 26, or if not, or don't want to say. But anyways, if you are, I'd encourage you to check out Climate Future Forum. So this is a group, the idea is to elevate the voices of youth, help them get more involved in our local legislative process. And so for the current 2025 legislative session, there are a number of bills that are actually still alive that CFF or Climate Future Forum is supporting. There's a link at the bottom there that takes you to the website and you can see the bills. I won't bother reading through all these or what have you, but if you're interested in supporting the youth, helping them elevate their voices and support, I encourage you to check out the Future Forum website and check out the bills that are alive. Many of these actually need a call or an email into the committee chairs to ask for a hearing. So most of them are waiting for a hearing at this point. I'm happy to answer any questions again if there are any youth on the line and interested.
Oh, it also looks like there might be something wrong with that URL. So I don't know if their website might be down, but just a heads up.
The futureforum.org website?
Is it missing climate or is it just futureforum.org?
I thought it was. Wait, hang on. It's Climate Future. Yeah, it's climatefuturehawaii.org.
Climate Future Hawaii? Okay.
Yeah, just put it in the chat.
Yeah.
I just want to highlight the it's so motivating and inspiring to see our high schoolers taking, being so courageous, leading the charge, going in, front of the legislature, testifying in person, organizing all these activities, setting up meetings with, our members of Congress so they can actually participate in meetings. High schoolers, it's just incredible.
Yeah.
And also part of CCL Hawaii Youth or CCL Youth, right? So anyway, it's just so inspiring to see them do that at such a young age, especially when I reflect on what I was doing at that age, which I care not share at this point. Anyway.
Yeah, good point, Noel. And let me just add to that, for those who may not know, UH Hilo student was the one that started the Hawaii Island chapter of Citizens Climate Lobby back in 2017, which followed the 2016 election, which, as we know, was the first Trump administration. And so, Kyrie, for your information, you're following along as a young UH student at UH Hilo, a kind of a nicely well-trodden path. Zoe Whitney was a student back there in 2017, went on to study abroad, and is now back on Maui as a school teacher. So just wanted to throw that out there, and we'll support you at UH Hilo as we can. So thank you for being here tonight.
I also mentioned as we're getting into the Hawaii state level legislative content, that the Hawaii legislative calendar runs January 15th through, I believe, April 30th. So just we're about, a month into the legislative session for the year. So just to give you a sense of where we're at in case you're not familiar. And this is Doug. You're up next.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, so we got some good traction in the ledge leading up to the final committee fights. We did get an audience with Representative Lowen, which ultimately helped us get heard by the environmental committee in the House, and then Paul made a last-minute trip to Representative Iligan's office to try to get him to hear the carbon cashback, and had a meaningful conversation with him on a Friday afternoon at the last minute, but it didn't go through. So the bill died. Paul also made a trip to talk to Senator Okai, which is the first time we've really spoken to him in a meaningful way this year. So those were the highlights of the goodness that happened for carbon cashback, but unfortunately the results were the same. And as we know, it has passed the Senate and passed the House in years past, but the last 3 years have really not gotten us anywhere near the money committees. And then we carbon cashback is just voted this week. Came up with a list of bills on Monday to support, and will be actively supporting. There was a vote on Wednesday, and then actively supporting the bills you see here. I believe a lot of them are waiting to be heard from finance. Paul, can you speak to any more specifics on any of the whereabouts of any of these bills, or when we're going to notify folks to testify?
Yeah, thanks, Doug. So we had a voting what bills people wanted Carbon Cashback Hawaii to support, and so these seems to be the top 6 of the bills. In fact, we have 10. We've already had success. We submitted testimony in support of 1051, the energy efficiency, and that made it through finance today, so should go on. So we'll start sending out as of tomorrow. Probably make some calls, same type of calls as Climate Future Forum, to finance, and ask for these bills to be heard. And as they get a hearing, then send out an alert to ask people to testify.
Okay.
And as far as other actions people can easily take, actually, I think we have some new people here who haven't had a chance to get on this list with other very famous people and endorse carbon cashback. So hopefully this link is actually correct. If you click on this link, it should take you to a page that gives you the opportunity to support or endorse carbon cashback. Eventually, this list will go public once we feel we get a kind of a critical mass or what have you. But anyways, if you support carbon pricing, carbon cashback, please go to the site and please click the endorse.
And Paul and Doug, what is our goal? Like 100,000 endorsements before the next session. Is that right?
Yeah, we have 95,000, so we just need to get that final 5,000. We'll
do it.
Okay.
It'll happen.
Maybe just a little bit shy of that, but somewhere around there. You're right, Noah.
Yeah.
Right, and so we have our standing meetings, and Mondays at 1 is really the general meeting. So it's actually Mondays at 1:30. So if you are interested in joining Carbon Cashback and can make time during the middle of the day, that's probably your best bet to find out what's going on in the Carbon Cashback state fight.
I just want to add to that. The bills didn't make it, but we're closer, right? We have Iligan is looking was indicated that he's willing to help us. So the fight is maybe this particular effort didn't pass this time, but it looks like we have just an ongoing cadence, right? We're continuing to build momentum. And hopefully in the next session, we'll have success.
Yeah, we had two bills in both houses, both chambers, and they were competing. There was some good, honest discussion that happened. And there's a lot of supporters in the House. I mean, over 20 legislators, and some long-standing relationships now are being developed and are being nurtured and continue to be. And even across the aisle conversations are happening. So, we didn't get the result we wanted, but we do have support, and we're going to continue the fight.
Oh, would you say we're at the 10-yard line?
We're building this is a moonshot, and we just have the first the ladder is just 100 feet tall. No, yeah, we're at the 10-yard line. We're gonna.
Okay, this is our last slide. I'm going to stop sharing so we can see each other.
Thanks, Doug, for all of the work and for the rest of the Carbon Cashback team this year. I know it's frustrating when we don't get it across the finish line, but it's still adding up. And the more people that learn about it, the more people on our side. And I'm going to post in the chat a link for you to record your attendance at this meeting for the CCL Action Tracker. Please click on it and say that you were in this meeting. It helps us since we don't have to add everyone manually, and then we can kind of track towards our goals of attendance. But thank you guys so much for joining.